On everybody, I'm back with another video, and today's video is going to be about Newcastle's change in tactics, change in shape in recent games. So let's get right into it. This is going to be using Keyframe today. Keyframe's just another great easy tool to create professional level illustrations for an affordable cost. So if you want to check it out, it's in the description below. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Everyone's been super awesome about that. Thank you so much. So let's get right into it. So one important piece of context information here is with Crystal Palace and their shape. They played with an asymmetric back four, which often led to a three-man buildup. And then from here, this influenced the shape of Newcastle quite a lot. And this video isn't so much a match analysis, but it's more of a conceptual tactical analysis of Newcastle, seeing if these tactical changes they've implemented can change their season around. So they play in a 4-diamond-2 formation. And although we can't see the holding midfielder here, he's just deeper than the outside central midfielders, or the eights. So now the key point right now is Almiron, and he is responsible for using his cover shadow to eliminate the access to the holding midfielder via a vertical pass from the most central defender. And now he is also tasked with closing down the space at times and pressing the central defender. So from here, Almiron jumps, and this almost creates almost like a three-man front three, but we can see that Almiron is more playing as a 10 rather than a 9, especially in possession, and the players in the half spaces, Wilson and Fraser, are the two central forwards, but they play in the half space for transition reasons to create a more vertical transition in the offensive phase, so they can take advantage of numbers going forward, and they just are put into a more dangerous position because the half spaces have more variability to go narrow towards goal or to go outside of the defender's shape. So just a quick note, the two very important players are Fraser and Wilson, and they are usually tasked with pressing from out to in and using their cover shadows to prevent access into the wide areas. So now we're going to keep moving on into the next picture and highlight more of the shape and see some tactical concepts used. So now we can see Almiron and how when the Crystal Palace, I'm going to highlight him in blue, Crystal Palace's holding midfielder drops deeper in front of the Newcastle defensive block. Almiron, he stays space oriented, and his height is very dependent on the interactions between the holding midfielder and the central defender. So from here, we can look at the shape of Newcastle. Almiron playing as a makeshift 9 in the defensive phase, and now we see the players in behind. But the shape is one thing, but the roles the players play in it is completely different. So Almiron, starting in the 9 position, will often come deeper as a 10 role, with Fraser and Wilson making runs in behind in transition, as well as our wide midfielders in the midfield 4 playing more as box-to-box or a traditional 8, maybe even coming deeper as a deep line playmaker. And then their holding midfielder plays as a classic holding midfielder, covering the players in front of him and controlling the space in between the lines. So from here, Almiron is space oriented when the holding midfielder drops out of the zone of influence of the defensive block. So now when the ball is played, he can then go close it down, but Almiron's height would be varied if the holding midfielder was higher up the field. Almiron would most likely be deeper, and in a back 4, we could see the outside forwards, or Fraser or Wilson, they would be higher up the field against a back 4 most likely. So now moving forward, and checking out the next picture, we see now another situation. So Almiron again, he's tasked with controlling the holding midfielder. He's being pulled towards him using his cover shadow or just creating access to the holding midfielder, and while another midfielder drops deeper, this elicits the jumping action from a wide midfielder of the midfield 4 from Newcastle. And notice how it's the midfielders who jump and have vertical mobility and not the forwards. So the forwards pretty much always stay in the half spaces, and I can highlight that for you right now. So the forwards, Wilson and Fraser in this picture, pretty much always stay within the half space. Half spaces, they pretty much always stay in the half spaces for the transition and to create access to the wide central defenders, as well as the wide center defenders and the wide fullbacks or wingbacks in this situation. So that elicits the jumping from the wide midfielder, and we see John Joe Shelvey being occupied by the forward who is dropping deeper, or the attacking midfielder for Crystal Palace. So then the next situation is we'll see what happens when first we'll see now the whole midfielders in one frame. We have the midfield diamond 4, and then now we can see their space of occupation. So we have the weak side wide central midfielder and the strong side player, and they create very tight connections to control the space between the lines, and I'm highlighting that now. So their zone of influence is very compact, and with their holding midfielder going to one side, there is some variability, and they're still getting used to it. So for this picture here, we see that both John Joe Shelvey and their holding midfielder are shifted to one side, leaving the weak side player free between the lines, which Crystal Palace isn't the most dynamic in possession. They do really well in transitions and when the game gets opened up. So these little shifting cues and mistakes, maybe John Joe Shelvey jumps out a little too early. Almiron could use his cover shadow better, but these little mistakes will be refined in time. But the consistency now is always the forwards in the half space ready for the offensive transition. So they're more space oriented in the half spaces, whereas the midfield 4 interact with each other much more, which is why we can label it more of a 4-diamond-2 rather than a 4-3-3 or a 4-1-4-1, even though structurally it looks like that. But the reference the players take up in the midfield 4 and in the transition is much more oriented towards each other, whereas the two forwards maintain their position and take their cues more from the space. So now we'll see in transition, just the ball is just won, and right away vertical runs from Fraser and Wilson to take advantage of the stretch defense. So one reason why Crystal Palace played with a back 3 in their build-up phase is to protect against this, so they have two wide central defenders to occupy the transition of Newcastle. But then we have Almiron now, who will be dropping deeper in the 10 space. He wins the ball in the 10 space, and then he will operate much more as a number 10 or an attacking midfielder in the offensive and transition phases. And by him playing as a central striker in the defensive phase, it gives him then the ability to use his technical ability and find passes into the half spaces or the vertical runs from the forwards, as well as having tighter connections with his midfielders who are covering him for supporting options. So now we're going to look at a picture of when Newcastle get broken. So the ball is just played, and we see then again 2 forwards in the half spaces. Almiron is the 10, and then now we have our midfield 3 in the frame, and then our 4th player is just beyond the screen in the holding midfield position. So when the shape is broken, we can see the response from the players, and right away, because of the 4 diamond 2, we have our three midfielders right in a compact block, controlling the space between the lines and ready to shift with the 2 forwards going backwards and Almiron dropping deeper. So right away, when the team is broken, the 4-man midfield in the diamond shape become more of a flat 3 in response to being broken, and then that's how they seem to deal with it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, a quick one today, and I'll see you in the next one. Please like and subscribe to the channel, it means an awful lot, and I'll see you in the next one.